Welcome to the EchoCast, episode 119. I'm going to call this one Agnostic Rainbows, and that will make sense once I talk about the state of the game. This is a podcast about the Division 2, its community news, speculation, and updates. I am Bon Diesel. I do Division stuff such as this podcast, Twitch streams, and YouTube videos, mostly about the Division 2. Please take a moment to subscribe and rate the podcast on whatever platform you listen. It helps me out. It gets the show noticed, and I do appreciate it. This week, we've got State of the Game recap, Division 2 news and speculation, community topics, listener questions, and content updates. I want to thank this month's Patreon supporters, Hassan, Christian, Darren, Tim, and PK. If you would like to support the show and my other content, please check out patreon.com/BonDiesel. I am willing to do some new promotions or merch or whatever. If you want to join as a patron, or if you already are one, please give me your ideas. I am fresh out. Okay, so into the State of the Game recap. This week we had Hamish, Nikki, and Johan talking about various updates with the game, including the new loot system and agnostic gear mods. They started to show off some of the title update 11 things, such as a graphic that showed that there's a new game mode, which we know is Skyscraper, Season 3, new gear, appearance mods, loot improvements, and agnostic mods. They talked about the last two things during this State of the Game, which we will get into momentarily. They did point out that there's no date for the PTS quite yet, and just said soon. And they also reminded everyone that next week, September 2nd, is when they are going to talk about the new Skyscraper PvE mode. So today the main topic was talking about the new gear system and the agnostic mods. So the new gear system is essentially going to work where all of the different brands lean towards having a certain core attribute, either blue, yellow, or red. And the way the system currently is it's basically random what the non-core attributes can be. And the way they're changing that, which has led to the rainbow loot system that everyone talks about, rainbow gear. So the way they're changing that is whatever the core attribute is. They originally said the first secondary attribute, they originally said during the State of the Game, it would 100% always match the core. Now they've pulled back on that and said there's going to be a chance it can be something different, because like with any change in the division, even if it's something people have been calling for en masse, there's a small but loud contingent of people who love the way it is now. So apparently there's a decent number of people who really like being able to have a blue or a red roll on their yellow skill tier core attribute. So they're still giving that a chance. They didn't say what the actual rate will be. My guess is it'll be like 85 or 90%. So basically the idea is that most of the time when gear drops now, you'll have your core attribute, red, yellow, or blue, and then the first attribute will almost always match it. Will be in the same category. And then if there's a third attribute, depending on the gear, not gear sets basically, there's going to be a chance it will also be the same as the core, but it looked like there's only a 10% chance of that happening. So, I think they're doing that because you can use the recalibration or whatever it's called, to change it if you want like an all red piece of gear or something like that. So they did say that named gear would work with this, but they did say that will kind of depend though, because some of the named gear pieces have a perfect talent where this system will definitely work, but some of the named gear have a perfect attribute. So I don't really know how that's going to work, and we'll have to kind of wait and see, I guess. They did also include that gear sets will be part of this, which means that whatever the gear set's core attribute is, it will always have the same like secondary attribute. And then they did say that guns are not included in this change because it wouldn't really work. They have a different different system. And that was really about it. They talked a bit about the Manhunt. There's some patches and stuff coming lately. They thought they fixed the PlayStation blue screen issue, or at least mostly fixed it. I'm sure some people are still having that. I'm not really sure what's up with that. I kind of wish they would like vaguely explain it. Again, my guess is I've been hearing it's mostly happening on the original PlayStations. So I just wonder if maybe the game is just overwhelming those systems a bit. Because I believe it happens specifically when certain skills are used, which is really odd. So there just must be something in the system that's overwhelming the PlayStations and making them blue screen. So, and then they showed a bunch of other stuff as well. They talked about the Manhunt, which I will go over, and yeah. So with the PTS, kind of my thoughts on the show. I think the PTS will probably start at the end of next week after they talk about the skyscraper mode. I do still wish they would just do one round of PTS on consoles just to give people a chance to, it's a large part of the player base, especially between the two systems. I would argue it's probably more than half, and at least. And I think it just is a bummer to make these big changes, even though I don't know, if there's necessarily gameplay changes happening per se, but I understand there's a big issue with the approvals on the Xbox and PlayStation side, and that's why I think even just one round of it would be nice. I think that there was some bad planning with the one console PTS they did in Division 1, and some miscommunication that was honestly just on their side, from my recollection. And I think it's a little bit, I don't know. I don't think that what happened in the Division 1 with that PTS is really a very good excuse, because that was really kind of on them and not really on the limitations of the consoles for the PTS. But it's not going to happen. They've made it pretty obvious that they're only doing PC PTS, so whatever. I'll move on. I also hope they don't have the skyscraper mode in the PTS, and if they do, that it's super duper limited. We're under the impression there's 100 floors to the skyscraper mode that you have to get through. I wouldn't want there to be more than 5, maybe. My guess, and from the leaks, and this is spoiler warning, I guess, is supposedly every 10 levels you have like a checkpoint. So maybe the first 10 to the first checkpoint, but not anymore. Because really it just kind of ruins everything to really show it at all, in my opinion. It's a PvE mode, so I really don't think they need to show it on the PTS, because it's not like there's any like PvP balancing or something. So I don't know. That's just me, I guess. I don't, because what it turns into is basically content creators using it for easy content and essentially showing it like a demo or like an early access rather than actually testing it. I've personally always been skeptical of the PTSs, that I highly suspect that 90% of the useful feedback they get is just from the data that they collect of people's playing, and really very little from the actual players' dialogues, because when you see the reactions people have to things on the PTS, it's the same as always. It's just a bunch of people with different opinions arguing about who is right about stuff, and often I don't believe that the things that people want even end up happening. So I don't know. That's just my take on it. I also really hope that they actually hide any future content this time. Having season 2, 3, and 4 kind of spoiled, and the skyscraper mode revealed, I actually am kind of mixed on it, because I think it sucks. I feel bad for developers and people involved with the game, because they work really hard on this stuff, and to have it spoiled sucks. But I'll be totally honest, reading through the spoilers and digging through them, kept my excitement for the game going, because if I didn't know what's, and the thing is that it's actually kind of vague in season 3 and 4. Season 2 stuff was pretty clear from the leaks, so it was actually pretty spoilery. 3 and 4, there's definitely spoilers in it, but it's also kind of vague, so there's still a lot to know, and we still don't really know how season 4 ends, even from the leaks. So there's some hint to it, but I don't know. I think season 4 is going to end up leading to a Division 3 announcement still, if you want me to be totally frank, but we'll have to wait and see. But at the end of the day, I still hope that they don't have any of that stuff in there. As for the loot changes, I think they're awesome. I think they're really good. I think the agnostic gear mods is actually probably the best one, and I hope surely that's one that everyone can agree on, because it shouldn't hurt anyone. With the fact that they're changing the first attribute from being guaranteed the same as core to just most likely being, I think that's probably a better choice. I've never really hated rainbow gear, because I think it makes it, I mean, that's part of the game, right? Like, you're not supposed to just get everything the first time you try. It's about that perfect piece dropping, or that piece that is one roll away from being perfect that you can do. I've always felt like that's the whole point of Division. So I think people being, and so when I have gotten those pieces that say I'm looking for all red, and it drops a 2 red or even 3, that's really exciting. And now I feel like this system is going to make that way more common and a little bit less exciting. But, and I even say that as someone who doesn't really play a ton, and I still enjoy that. So I don't know. I think the people who spend a lot of time on this game just don't feel like their time is as respected as they want it to be. I have kind of mixed feelings on that personally, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, I think that these changes will definitely adhere to kind of my concept I've talked about of always trying to make at least 2/3 of your community happy. And I think these changes do that. So I congratulate them. I think this is a good change. And that was kind of really all to talk about with the state of the game this week. So next week, obviously, though, there will be probably a lot more to talk about and speculate on as we learn at least a little bit about the skyscraper mode. That they've tried to really hammer it in that it's not the underground, it's not resistance, it's a new thing. And ever since Division 2 released, I've honestly grown extremely tired of and super annoyed with people just being, we want survival, we want, actually Last Stand is the only mode I really think that like needs to come back as a PvP mode. But survival, I get it was like a cult classic, and I understand why people are passionate about it. I really liked survival as well, but it got really boring. And sometimes I kind of feel like people kind of got like a Stockholm syndrome with survival and kind of convinced themselves they liked it a lot more than, or not that they liked it more than they do. Obviously they can like it as much as they want, but that it was better than it was, because it's not, it's static. It's the same thing every time. Really the only thing that changes is the route you take and whether or not you run into someone. And in my opinion, PvP once you enter the dark zone tended to be not really all that great anyways. PvP outside of the dark zone and survival, I would argue is probably the best PvP Division has ever had. But that's a discussion for a different day. So I don't want the skyscraper to be the underground, even though I really like the underground or survival and so on. I'm happy that they keep saying that it's a whole new thing. Whether it really is or not, we'll have to wait and see. What you'll also have to wait and see is what I'm going to talk about after this mid-roll. Okay, so some Division 2 topics, community topics, listener questions, and content updates. We'll start with the Division 2 topics. Just kind of my general thoughts on the Season 2 Manhunt. So I try-harded the final Manhunt target and then Hornet when it came out on Tuesday. Actually, I stayed up way later than I should have and did it. But I actually really enjoyed it. Now the actual Titan was fine. Again, I like doing control points and bounties. So actually the most annoying part about those missions to me is honestly doing the missions. I don't really care for doing those most of the time. Especially the Pentagon ones and the New York missions are just so damn long. But I got through them and I did Titan. I don't really have any comment on that. Those manhunt targets are just glorified bounties. So I'm not, the only really interesting thing about them is that they have the red gas grenades, and so they can jack you up if you're not careful. But it was fine. Now the Hornet, on the other hand, I guess spoiler warning if you haven't finished the manhunt yet. But you do your final mission against him in a pretty well modified tidal basin stronghold mission. So I found that mission to not be quite as unique mechanically as the first one was on Roosevelt Island, but I found it way more fun. I felt that that first manhunt final target, that mission on Roosevelt Island was just like tedious to me. I didn't really find it to be fun. It was really just kind of frustrating because I don't think the mechanic is explained very well, and I don't think the mechanic works super consistently. Maybe I'm wrong. Feel free to tell me so. So I found this Hornet mission to maybe not be quite as like surprising from a mechanic standpoint, but I found it more enjoyable. And so the big, I guess, twist in this mission is that, one, you get the new skill like halfway through the mission. You don't kill the target to collect it, and not only that, but you get assistance over the radio from someone who ends up actually hacking a Warhound robot for you, and you actually attach the skill to the Warhound, and that Warhound helps you through the mission to get to the final area, which again is the big giant hovercraft to fight Hornet. And I actually found that really cool. I really enjoyed that. That was something that was leaked in the last document that came out from the last PTS detailing the seasons and Skyscraper. And I thought that was a really cool little mechanic. I really enjoyed that mission. I thought it was actually fun to play through. And I found the little final battle against Hornet to be, it was fine. It wasn't anything crazy. There's basically just a mechanic where you need to blow up some boxes by placing charges on them. I could have dealt with it being maybe a little bit more of an interesting fight. But it was fine. And then I beat him, and I actually really enjoyed that final manhunt mission. I like Tidal Basin as a mission in general. And then so the big thing about it, I think, is all of the intel that you got from that. So there's a lot of kind of past conversations you come upon between Keener and Hornet. You kind of learn more about their relationship. It's nothing that crazy. It did kind of crack me up at the very end after you kill Hornet. I think Manny or someone comes up over the radio and is like, okay, Isaac has confirmed this time Hornet's actually dead. Because something I said before was that it's worth keeping in mind that because Hornet died in the first game and then got plot armor and came back, it should be at least considered that basically no character in the game is definitely dead really ever. Obviously there's some situations where people are for sure dead, but I think there's at least some consideration to I kind of don't like that. This happened with Colonel Bliss in the first game, where people are like, well, his helicopter crashed, but are we sure he died? So we'll have to see about that. Again, there's a lot of conspiracies from people about whether or not Keener is actually dead, or if someone rescued him away after you left, the Manhattan, or the island with the Statue of Liberty, whatever it is. So I enjoyed this manhunt. I like the manhunt targets. I think they're fun. Again, because I like control points and bounties. I do wish they were a little more interesting. I do wish there was a little bit more to the targets before the final. I like that the final enemy always has some type of modification to a stronghold. I wish the other targets during the manhunt were as unique. This is kind of spoilers, I think, but for the next two manhunts, the first two manhunts have been at strongholds for the final mission. I believe the last two are as well, or at least one of them. I think the last one isn't. I think it's somewhere else, and I'm pretty sure about that, so I won't spoil it. But I believe the next one is at the zoo. So we'll have to see about that one. I like the zoo mission, but man, I hate how it is just such a long freaking mission, whether it's the outcast one or the invaded one. So I can only imagine if the final manhunt is at that, I just prepare your butts, I guess, because it's probably gonna be kind of nuts. So I'm excited for that, though. I just really wish, I understand why the seasons are so spread out the way they are, just simply to extend the content and make sure people don't burn through it in a week. But I kind of wish there was just enough content to fill that time instead of artificially spacing it out. But regardless, I'll be excited to do season 3, which seems like it's going to be coming along with season or title update 11. The second topic, I actually kind of just wanted to pop in because it just kind of occurred to me. But I would like to get, and I highly doubt there's still a decent number of people listening to this show. I kind of doubt any of them are with Massive or Ubisoft. If you are, DM me, let me know. I'm actually kind of curious. But I would like to hear from Julian or really any of those like higher ups at Massive, just about the game, how they felt about the release, about how it's been received, about how content has released since, what they think of that content. They could even maybe talk about things that they wish could have happened but didn't. I think Julian's an interesting guy, and I would like to hear his insight, and I think it kind of stinks that before the game comes out and when it comes out, we kind of hear from them and then they kind of disappear. I assume if there's a third game coming, I don't want to assume that the same people will be doing the same things that they did with 1 and 2, but I would say there's always that chance that there's kind of a running team that takes the game after the first year or so and does the content that we've been getting, and then they start to work on the next one. But there's really no serious rumors or anything other than just speculation about that. So I don't know. I would just kind of like to hear straight from the horse's mouth how things are going and how they feel about it, the ups and the downs. I honestly feel like Julian's always been pretty blunt about when he thinks things aren't going well and so on. So I would really like to hear. Obviously, I like hearing from Hamish and Johan and Yannick and those guys, but it would just be kind of nice to get that higher up, or even like a podcast, like a separate show or something that they record privately to maybe make sure there's no leaks or anything. But I would just really, I think it'd be cool to hear from them. I think a lot of people who are invested in the game would enjoy hearing from that kind of upper echelon of the development team. And then the third topic is just kind of for fun, is just kind of wondering where the movie is. So the last news we got about the Division movie is that Netflix acquired the rights to it. It would become a Netflix movie. I know some people see that as like a big scary thing, but Netflix, it has a lot of misses when it comes to its movies, but it's also got a lot of hits, man. I won't go on too much about it. And this isn't maybe the best example in the world, but that Eurovision movie is so good. And it has like really serious star power in it as well. So, and it's a really high production, even if you don't like the movie, the production value of it was extremely high. You could watch that movie in a theater and it would fit, right? So the Division movie going to Netflix isn't a big deal. And even I think it was towards the beginning, I want to say around April or March, The director that's supposed to be doing the Division movie was interviewed about it and talked about it. And we know that the two main stars of the movie are supposed to be Jake Gyllenhaal, and of course I can't remember. Of course Jessica Chastain. And I know the chatter then was that they both had projects that they were currently working on and that were coming up soon that were both ahead of Division. And then obviously, and kind of some irony, I guess, a worldwide pandemic hit. And so I assume that's pushed back everything. So I'm kind of curious to what we're looking at. Some people did speculate, which I actually did think was kind of interesting, that even, if they began shooting towards the end of this year, or sometime next year, a potential speculation is that there could be a Division 3 release towards the beginning of 2022. And if they started the movie at the end of this year or did it next year, there is a potential that they could release the movie on Netflix and a new game all at the same time. I still think that we're going to get a Division 3 announcement next March. So here in however many months, 7 or 8 months, whatever it is. I think that's what's going to happen. And so actually those timelines matching up would be interesting, is what I'll say. As for what the movie is, at this point, I still think that it's going to be like an origin story of the Shade. It's either going to end back, in like flashbacks, or in real time. It's going to show. I think Gyllenhaal is going to be Keener because I think he looks like him, and I think they're going to show Keener before he was recruited. They're going to show the training for Shade agents and kind of explain what's going on, and then show the virus hit, and then show like kind of the early days of the virus hitting and the Shade agents being activated, and then things happening to Keener to show why he turns. And I think, and I think she is going to be one of the people in his squad, and who's going to watch him turn and then end up having to fight him. And we'll see what Chastain's role, but that's my guess. I think it's going to be like an origin story or like a prequel to the first game, which I think is perfect. I would love to see that. That's exactly what I would like to see from it, to kind of give some depth to those characters. Okay, some community topics. The big things I saw talked about this week were talking about the skill variants, specifically talking about the new one you get from the end of this Manhunt and whether or not they're even like worth it or whether they're that good. I'll be totally honest. I kind of feel like most of the skill variants are just there because they had kind of a set number of skills and variants that they were supposed to make, and they kind of just made them work. I think that they're cool. I think a lot of, even some of the skills in general, like there's just variants like the bombardier drone and stuff that, like, that's a very powerful skill, but I know on console it's almost impossible to make it work effectively or efficiently, and I can't imagine it's that much easier on PC. And then you have situations like there's just a lot that I just don't really think are really worth it. And I found that I've almost ended up basically using the same skills I used in Division 1, but maybe that's me. So I almost feel like with skills, it could have been like a less is more situation, because the two skills that we've gotten with the two manhunts, I'm not aware that they're very popular. I know this healing trap isn't popular at all, because I think the big issue is that there's not very many skill variants that another skill isn't better. So like this healing trap, that's cool, I guess. The problem with it is that I don't think it's better than any of the other healing options. If anything, it's actually kind of significantly worse because of how it works. So I don't know. I almost would love to see like a pass on all the skill variants, but I just don't think that's going to happen. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious about that. If you disagree, or if there's maybe a unpopular skill variant that you really like, let me know. I'm curious. I also saw on the subreddit that a 4-man Iron Horse completion happened this week, and that's crazy. If you listen to the podcast, you know I'm not really that big of a fan of the raids. I think that they were kind of a waste of development time and money, but I will not take away from watching the most recent raid, especially people being able to 4-man that is nuts. That's very impressive. So, hats off to them. That's very cool. Okay, I've got 2 listener questions. The first one is from Pasquale. Oh, geez, old Pete's. Sivaratis. I'm so sorry. On Discord. I'm an idiot. Just deal with me. Pasquale says, I've often wondered why headgear never made it as an actual gear slot in either Division 1 or 2. There would be a lot of possibilities with mods for headgear, upgraded comms or Isaac functionality, not to mention the protection from headshots. What do you think of the idea? And do you know if Massive ever considered this? So I don't know. So let me come right out and say that I can pretty much guarantee that at some point someone was like, hey, should we add new gear slots? And should helmets be one of them? I can almost promise, or headgear, I guess. That seems very likely. As someone who recently has played way too much Escape from Tarkov, headsets and helmets are a very big part of that game. And I think there's I would like to see that. So what I was hoping actually for Division 2 was that we would get more gear slots or something, or maybe even drop some ones that we have now. Like if you told me that we no longer had a glove slot, that they replaced the gloves with a helmet slot, that would be awesome. And then even if they added a headshot protection stat to that for PvP purposes, or I guess even PvE, that would be interesting as well. I'm too dumb to know how they would need to balance that and how that would all work, because then they would have to change how they prioritize how damage is done. There's all kinds of stuff with that. But yeah, I would love to have that. I think a headgear slot would be really cool, either by adding it as a whole new gear slot or getting rid of one, like the gloves. I don't know. The gloves are kind of cool, I guess. You could always just include the gloves with something else. But yeah, I would love that. But I personally don't know. I don't know for sure that they've ever considered that, but I can pretty much guarantee that I'm sure somewhere on the cutting room floor, there's an idea for headsets. So thank you for the question. I appreciate it. The next question comes from Jernsum on Discord as well. Is your ratio of playing Division 2 to other things going down, or is it constant? So it's actually gone up a ton. So I went through probably a couple months. I want to say it was after Escape from Tarkov did its last big patch and they wiped. And for like 2 months after that, I only really logged in to the division, basically to not lose my clan, if you want me to be totally honest, and to do the manhunt targets when they would pop up. But I would do that in a night, basically, maybe 2, or during stream on the weekends. And it's actually gone up a lot. I definitely went through once the season started and I realized that the manhunts especially were kind of not super overwhelmingly cool, but fine. And especially as I figured that I really don't like the global events. I think they kind of suck, actually. I don't really think the leagues are really all that fun to do. They're fine, I guess, but I more do them passively, I guess. And I definitely felt a little burned out and stopped playing as much. So, but more recently, I've actually kind of switched into something that happened with Division 1 with me as well, where I am kind of just enjoying playing the game. I'm hyper burned out on Escape from Tarkov. That game has broken me. I've actually gotten pretty good at it. But I've kind of completed this wipe and I don't really have much to do. So I've definitely found myself playing a lot more Division 2 lately. And that's a good thing. I know in the rest of your question, you kind of said that you've waned. I've only played a relatively small number of hours, 700 or 800 hours, compared to some people who have put in thousands already. So I think I'm actually kind of glad I took that break, because now I'm not burned out and I'm actually really enjoying just playing, doing bounties, doing control points, and just enjoying the game. As we kind of wait for more content, especially the skyscraper. The final thing here for content updates, I don't know what I'm going to do with streaming. I do plan on streaming this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, because I'm going to have to kind of wait till title update 11 to really have new content in season 3. But I am still pushing towards the 100 rank for the seasonal rank. I've been playing a lot of elite activities and control points, and I've really been enjoying that. And I begrudgingly want to finish the hunters, because I believe when you finish the hunters, you get an all black gear skin that actually dyes everything black, which I really want. So that will probably be what's on stream this weekend. And that's what I have. There's actually a storm rolling in, so I need to make sure we're not about to get blown away. I am Bon Diesel on Twitch, or you can check me out on there when I'm streaming, mostly on the weekends. You can check out my Twitter at Bon Diesel or at the EchoCast on there. Last, if you want some cool EchoCast or Bon Diesel merch, check out designbyhumans.com/shop/Bon Diesel, or just search Bon Diesel on their website. That's all I have. So until next time.